if the 20-something me could read this and go, do you want to have a little think about whether actually you are an introvert? How much it would have helped. And I'm sure one of the reasons why I got so fatigued, my immune system got funky, was because I was trying to be something that I was not.
Welcome to How to Fail, the podcast that believes that most failures can teach us something meaningful. My guest today created a comedic example of failure that became one of the most beloved sitcom characters of the last 20 years. The semi-autobiographical Miranda, which aired on the BBC from 2009 to 2015, featured a lovable, socially inept lead who frequently found herself in awkward situations. The show spoke to millions who also felt they never entirely fitted in, and won its creator, Miranda Hart, 3 Royal Television Society awards. Hart went on to appear in Call the Midwife as Chummy, and in movies including Emma with Anya Taylor-Joy and Spy alongside Melissa McCarthy, who described her co-star as one of the funniest people I've ever met. Despite her on-screen good cheer and specifically British brand of dust yourself off humour, off-screen Hart faced serious challenges. The book opens with Hart's collapse, both physical and emotional, and charts a challenging decade during which she looked for answers and came up with a manual for living. Along the way, she did finally receive a diagnosis of Lyme's disease and, spoiler alert, she fell in love with the man who is now her husband. Yes, but perhaps more importantly, with herself. My greatest achievement, she writes, is learning to be kind and compassionate to myself. Put another way, less palatable and easily misconstrued, but I shall say it anyway. My greatest achievement has been falling in love with myself. Miranda Hart, welcome to How to Fail.
Oh, thanks. Well, what a lovely introduction.
What a lovely book.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm still, as I remember the next sentence after that is, I'm slightly cringing at that I've fallen in love with myself. And I did do a little kind of...
You did a British contraction.
I still do a British middle class contraction.
Actually, I really wanted to ask you about that because the book is so generous and really takes the reader by the hand. You talk to the reader throughout what you're writing. And you've clearly done so much of your own research, guided by needing to find the answers yourself.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is about self-compassion and self-love. A lot of things that we traditionally think of as quite American and sort of therapeutic.
Yeah.
Which I'm a big fan of, by the way.
Yeah.
How much did you have to dismantle your British stiff upper lip to write it?
Well, firstly, I think you're right in that how the book started was that I needed answers for myself. So I did have to sort of demystify and kind of simplify this whole wellness expertise that's out there, which is amazing it's out there, that we've got access to these scientists and neuroscientists, or the ists, as I call them in the book. And so, yeah, it is me talking the reader through what I've learned and what are the sort of 10 keys, or the 10 treasures, as I call them, that kind of simplified all that talk and all that discourse. And part of, what I learned was how much of obviously, I think hopefully people all, from whatever background or whatever difficulty they're going through, will get something from it, from the treasures. But for me, a lot of it was going, gosh, that middle class background of keep calm, carry on, that stiffness, that just be positive and upbeat, don't show weakness, whatever that means, vulnerability. I really had to dismantle a lot of that. Not to research so much, but realise, oh my gosh, that is part of possibly what leads to chronic conditions, certainly keeps them going. So, yeah, it was a big wake-up call to many things, but definitely that.
I wonder if we could talk about Miranda, the character, because she is so beloved by so many millions, including me. Where does the character stop and you, Miranda Hart, start?
Oh, God, that's a good question. Weirdly, a question that I haven't been asked for about 10 years and probably couldn't answer then. I haven't thought about to this very moment. I always used to say that she was, when did I write her? When I was in my mid-late 30s. And I always used to say then she was the 20-something me. So in your 20s, you really don't know what you're doing. Well, I didn't.
No, me neither.
I didn't know who I was and what was going on. I was sort of trying to fit in, trying to belong, bumbling, tall, gangly, wasn't the perfect woman, all this nonsense you're supposed to fit in. So I think I always felt sort of a decade removed from her, if that makes sense. But actually her journey was to accept and learn to be herself. And she got there in the finales when she married her best friend. And I thought back then that I'd done that myself. I thought I knew and accepted myself. What the decades since, with illness and the time to reflect and have stillness, well, that was my only option, being bed and housebound often for months on end, was that I realised, I was further away from that than I thought. So it's been a huge privilege to think that my on-screen Miranda maybe got there first before me. But now I've caught up. Does that make any sense?
It made total sense, and I think it's really beautiful. And I relate in so many ways, in that I got divorced in my mid-30s, and then I thought I'd learned all of the lessons that I needed to apply next time into my new relationship, and I hadn't. I was actually using the new relationship as a kind of emotional scaffolding, as much as I didn't realise I was doing it, and I was in love with him and stuff. But when that relationship ended, it really forced me to confront the truth of myself.
Yeah.
And sometimes we need these crises.
Well, I think that's what the midlife crisis ultimately is, isn't it? It's going, I didn't know who I was until now. So empty nest syndrome, divorce, whatever, you're suddenly on your own. But what I'm passionate about is how much the blooming world shouts at us for so many reasons. It's so loud, it's so noisy. It still tells us how to look, how many steps to do a day now, for goodness sake, how to be fit, how to be healthy. It says be busy, 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 accrue, success, achievement. It's just shouting at us in so many ways. Don't be vulnerable, be upbeat and positive all the time, fix, help. And as a silly creative person who wrote Miranda and was a little bit Miranda, I didn't think that I'd fallen into that trap, but I had.
And in that context, although I know you said you were given no option because of your illness, but it's very brave to take 10 years out. And I wonder how fearful you were of that.
Very well, resisted it a lot, because initially it was pre-diagnosis. So I had about 5 years before a full understanding of the diagnosis. And in fact was told countlessly for sort of decades, because I hadn't felt well since teenage years, that it was just anxiety and stress. I don't know why just was, as in 2 weeks off and you'll be fine. So then I kept trying to go back to work, thinking, well, if I'm not physically unwell or that run down, then maybe work or help. So I did a bit of work in the first 5 years, but ultimately just completely collapsed. And then I knew there was something that was undiagnosed. And that's when I knew I couldn't work. And it was really, I wasn't fearful because I had no choice. But so the fear comes, I think, when you have choice of pre-diagnosis of whether to keep going, whether to not, because you feel so awful. You've got to keep going and be on set, and it's your face. You can't just take time out. It's a precious situation. So it wasn't fear-making. It was just very disappointing. And I just missed it so much. And I sort of lost my identity a bit initially with who am I without work? Because it's been such a huge part of my life, as it can be for many.
Could you just explain Lyme's disease to the uninitiated?
I got a tick bite, we since discovered, probably when I was 14 or 15, in America. And you can have a sort of flu-like feeling, very run down, high temperature, but you haven't seen that it's a clear tick bite. Yeah, it's basically a tick-borne infection, and it can lead to quite severe neurological things like loss of concentration and memory, and it screws with your immune and nervous system, basically.
And it means you can never sort of fully recover.
No, so it becomes then a kind of ME. That's ultimately what ME becomes, is that you get an initial infection, and long COVID, same. You could get COVID, you could get any virus or infection, and your immune system just never fully recovers. So you feel like you have flu every day, but yet you don't. You don't have a temperature. And so it's very hard to get a diagnosis.
And you're often, as we were talking about, dismissed by the mainstream medical establishment, particularly, one might say, men, I imagine. And tell us about TAT.
TAT, oh gosh, yeah, that was, my heart just goes out to anyone listening who's got chronic illness, particularly ME and chronic fatigue, because what I think the hardest thing about it for me was the bit misjudged and misunderstood by far. I kept saying, if someone told me what I've got, what the management plan is, what the pill I take or not take, what I do, I can cope. That's where the resilience can come in. It's the not knowing and the being misunderstood. And this doctor I went to, he said to me, he was sort of being grumpy when I was telling this doctor and going, I just feel like I'm going to collapse. I just feel really unwell. What's going to happen? And he looked like he was listening, but I wasn't sure. And then he wrote down something at the top of my notes. And I said, oh, what did you write? And he was like, a bit like, well, I'm not going to tell you, sort of thing. I was like, tell me what you think's wrong with me and my body. And I looked at his notes and it said TAT, T-A-T-T. I said, what's TAT? And he went, it's code for tired all the time. So I said, you're just putting TAT at the end of my note. But and I remember saying to him, if I was just a bit tired and recovered after a night's sleep and got through, I wouldn't be here sitting complaining. The tears were welling up. And he literally then just went, I don't know what else to say to you. There's nothing wrong with you. Look, I've got your blood test, and got properly cross with me. And I just ran out in floods. It's awful.
I'm so sorry.
Well,
it's
I mean,
horrible. When someone's like, I know it's not necessarily an individual's responsibility. I mean, it is, but it's not necessarily his fault. But
no,
the gaslighting on this sort of grand scale of particularly women's pain and experience is a very difficult thing.
It's really hard. And I thought, hopefully that has gone away. I mean, I'm sure it's better and better now, particularly with the talk of long COVID and ME and where it's coming from, and much more understanding about these chronic pain and fatigue conditions. But Kirsty Young had recently said that only, I think, 4 years ago, she was told, oh, fibromyalgia, that's not a thing. She's like, but I can't really sort of move. So, yeah, it is weird. And I mean, who knows because actually women predominantly get these conditions, which is interesting in itself, maybe because of the years of gaslighting on various other things. We're so flipping run down. Our body is going to eventually scream. So, yeah, I just hope that's better now. I really do.
Let's get on to your failures. Your first failure is failure to be a farmer's wife.
Yes, very, very important. I don't know why you're laughing.
Well, first of all, I find it intriguing that it's being a farmer's wife rather than being a farmer.
Yeah. Well, again, this was, can I first say, let me just,
yes.
Can I defend myself?
Absolutely. No. All your internalized misogyny.
Yes, exactly. This was when I was, the question, what did you want to be when you were younger? I love that question because I think it's a great portal to what are you missing out on now? Because I think our younger selves often know the answer, what we want to be. And so if we're tired or in a midlife crisis or lacking joy in our life, go back to that question and think, actually, is there anything in that? So one of the things I wanted to be was a comedian. The other thing I wanted to be was win Wimbledon. And I also wanted to be a farmer's wife. So I obviously also was very wise when I was young, thinking, I know that farming is one of the hardest industries and jobs out there. So I won't be the farmer. I'll be the farmer's wife. To me, what that meant was collecting the eggs from the chickens. So basically, it's that I wanted chickens. Mm-hmm. And I think I did visualise myself in a pinny in a country farm cottage, but I was never doing any cooking.
Did you listen to the Archers?
No, never listened to the Archers. But I had a sheepdog. There was a sheepdog involved. Oh. Yeah, so I probably did not the harvesting and the serious sort of tractor business.
Or the waking up early.
Or the waking up early or the accounts or any of that. I just did the sort of fun sheepdog. There were probably goats. Small pigs that don't ever turn into big pigs. Piglets, I believe they're called. So you can see I was a natural. But I wanted the landscape. I think I did want to drive a Land Rover. All those fun sort of...
Quad bikes.
They're not fun. They're terrifying.
Okay, sorry.
Quad bikes? No. Okay. No, it has to be more like a sort of glorified golf buggy.
Talk to me more about the delight of solitude, which I think comes up when you're talking about that and comes up in your book too. Because, I mean, I can relate to this as well, that curious mishmash of introversion and extroversion, because you're clearly a very capable and talented performer.
Thank you very
and
much.
You put your face out there and your name, and it's sort of a version of you.
Yeah, I can do that.
But I think I'm getting from you that you are actually more introverted than you ever allowed yourself to be. Would that be fair?
Well, first I ever knew that I was. Where did that come from? Knew? Ever knew that I was? No, I didn't realise I was an introvert. See, that's one of the things that I think the world, I don't know now, but it did when I was growing up. I don't know if you relate to this, although you are younger than I. But it was still maybe pre-Susan Cain's book Quiet coming out.
Amazing book.
That it was still better to get ahead. Again, I'm putting that in inverted commas. What does that mean? If you are extroverted, loud, out there, positive, upbeat, wise, clever. And where was the celebration or the acceptance or the encouragement of the shyer child who might be the contemplative and the still one and needs to work with no music in the background and all the things that I've learned about myself, that I was in a world that was too noisy for me. And because I didn't know I was introverted, because I tried to be an extrovert, because that's what I was taught culturally. And then when I realised it, probably only 10 years ago, this weight just lifted off. I thought, oh, of course. So one of the reasons to say I'm a failed farmer's wife is I think because I was forced into an urban environment that was just too much for my nervous system ultimately.
Yeah.
So, but actually I think I could do that urban environment now with the knowledge of being an introvert and a highly sensitive person. If I took the time for stillness, I need a day a week to not speak. That's kind of one of my little rules. I like to socialise in small groups very intentionally. I get exhausted by a big night out. But all that stuff as a 20-something at university or as a teenager, you don't feel that that's allowed. Or I didn't.
No.
And so I forced to become another way and become also very productive, which I love. It's definitely part of me, but not without the degree of stillness and contemplation and peace and space and countryside that I need. And so it's just so freeing to now, and this is why I'm so passionate about my book and why I wrote it, is just if the 20-something me could read this and go, do you want to have a little think about whether actually you are an introvert? How much it would have helped. And I'm sure one of the reasons why I got so fatigued, my immune system got funky, was because I was trying to be something that I was not. So yeah, I think A Farmer's Wife was a way to escape from the noise.
I completely get all of that, because I always knew I wanted to be a writer. And I thought, well, to get into writing, I've got to be a journalist first. So I went into journalism, and I am an introvert, but I was pitched headlong into this world where I had to bowl up to people at parties. I was on the diary column at the Evening Standard and ask famous people questions. And it was so nerve-wracking.
And exhausting.
And this is the thing that you identify. So exhausting. And
hang on, I'm going to do a burp.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm so sorry.
That'll be a social media clip.
That's just classic. Down the line again, apologies for the burp. Slightly sweaty upper lips because I had tea. And you were in the middle of talking about you.
Yeah.
Maybe it was because I didn't want it to be about you.
Yeah, which is totally fair enough, and it shouldn't
You're
be.
interviewing me. Who do you think you are, Elizabeth Day?
But it relates to what you're
carry
saying.
on.
So
no, it's fascinating.
It's absolutely that exhaustion, because I think I became a sort of socially conditioned, like a high-functioning introvert who could assume the mantle of extroversion, but it always came at a cost of energy.
Yes.
And now I'm at a stage in my life, which is exactly the stage that you write about in the book, where I don't know if I want to see anyone.
Well, exactly.
But how do you manage that? Because how do you manage friendships?
Very, very intentionally. So I trust that they're there if I don't see them for 2 years. B, I don't think you can have 100 really, really close friends. That's exhausting in itself, particularly I think even my very extroverted friends would say that's not really that possible. And for me, it's how I've sort of really thought, okay, how do I like socializing? Because I hate dinner parties. I hate formal. So I think actually the favourite way for me, as long as my friends are happy to socialise, is things like round a campfire or getting people over to watch Strictly and chatting for an hour and a half before and throughout. I don't like small talk. If people want to share something with me or I want to ask something, fine. So it's about intentionality for me. and trusting they're there. Because I think I did a lot of, I must keep up, I must see her, must see him, must do that, for fear that that was the good and nice thing to do, and that they won't be there if I don't. But now I have full trust that they're there, that they'll tell me if they need to see me. And then the intentional way to gather, if I may be so.
Did you lose friends over your illness, over that protracted period of not being able to keep up?
Well, amazingly, now I'm reconnecting. Now I have the health to reconnect, and I realise I didn't lose them, but they lost me completely, because I had no choice but to isolate. I was shielding before the word shielding existed, because even if I got a cold when I was working, then that would be me out for 6 to 8 weeks, and I wouldn't know why. So I had to be very careful who I was around. I couldn't work and socialise. So there was many years, even before illness, where I wasn't really available for them. So they definitely lost me. And then one of the things I mentioned in the book that I didn't realise I found so difficult was asking for help. So then when I wasn't practiced at that. So that then when I became ill, I didn't know how to say help, particularly when you don't have a diagnosis. And I was so exhausted, I just didn't want to see anyone. So I've got amazing friends because they did stick around. And I'm reconnecting with them now. And it's like we haven't had 10 years apart. And that's a sign of good friendship.
One of your best friends during this time was Peggy, your beloved dog.
Oh, Peggy.
And I wanted to talk about Peggy because it relates to this idyllic existence as a farmer's wife, because so much of it is about being surrounded by animals instead of humans.
Well, I think us introverts, and definitely, I keep saying this word, highly sensitive people. Have you come across that term, HSP?
Yes.
So if you haven't, look it up. Because if you are one, it makes a huge difference how to manage energy in life. But and we make the best people, obviously.
100%.
Obviously. What do you ask me? Oh, so we are very attuned with animals. We love animals. We love that calm, simple energy. Because basically, I'll stop saying we. I can only speak for myself. I think what I realise in a serious matter about animals is that the connection I love most is just sitting in a room with someone and you don't have to speak.
Yes.
And that's you feel utterly loved, utterly accepted, and you have to make no effort. You're just you. And that's what a dog gives you. I mean, obviously it's what lots of animals give you, but we tend to don't have pet lavas.
I have a cat and he gives me that.
Cat?
Yeah.
Fine. Exactly. I used to have a cat.
All right, it's not a competition.
No, until I realised I was mildly allergic to them.
Oh no.
I couldn't understand why I kept sort of coughing. It took me about 20 years. Anyway, but that's exactly cats and dogs. You just look at them and it makes you want to cry. You just feel you get in at the end of the day. I mean, even if I had somebody and wasn't single, I think I would have gone straight to the dog for that love first. So unconditional, present. They're also completely present. And I think that's what everybody needs, that non-judgmental presence, loving presence, but even more so as an introvert and highly sensitive person.
Do you have pets now? I
do. Peggy died early, oh gosh, I can't remember which year, but during the pandemic, which was the worst time. So then I was completely alone. And that led to, I mean, it's all in the book what I ended up learning, but gosh, the kind of hefty blessing in disguise of having to dig deep without Peggy. So it was about just under a year later that I got Patti. A friend happened to I love the way random things happen. A friend happened to text me and said, "Isn't it time you get a new dog?" This is about 10 months in. And I said, "Yes, but I'm so exhausted. Where do I begin looking? I don't know what breed." And as we were texting, she said, "Look at this link. I found this thing called a Pouchon, and it's in Portsmouth, which was near my parents where I was staying during the pandemic. And it was this little fluffy sort of sandy ball of poodly fur, hypoallergenic, thank you." And I went, "Well, that's it, yeah." And my sister went down and had a look at now Patti, the Pouchon from Portsmouth. And 6 weeks later, she was in my arms, this tiny ball of fluff. So I now have Patti.
Is a Pouchon a poodle and a Bichon Frise?
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Yes. So
amazing.
Peggy was a Bichon Frise Shih Tzu, or a shitty Frise as I called her. And now I've got a Pouchon. So there's a little theme there. But it's interesting how I don't need Patti in quite the same way as I needed Peggy, which means I'm much more generally connected in real life.
And you've got married.
And because I have a husband to look into his adoring eyes. It's early days. It's still early
Which
days.
I have to say is such a beautiful part of the book. And you plot it so perfectly.
Oh, coming from you, that means a lot.
Oh,
Thanks.
You saying coming from me means a lot to me.
The loop of love just keeps on going.
It's so wonderful. And I don't want to ruin anything for the reader because you reveal at the end something about how you met.
Yes.
But just tell us about that, because you always had a feeling, didn't you, that you were going to get married at 51?
Yeah. Yeah, it's so
How
weird.
bizarre.
So maybe I will be a farmer's wife. Yeah. He's not a farmer, so I can't be, otherwise I have to get, that's all gone wrong. So yeah, I remember that was in my sort of 20s. And I remember when everyone was sort of, all my girlfriends was talking about marriage and sort of wanting the big wedding and the white dress and all that. And I was just like, I don't relate to any of you. I just wasn't interested at all. I don't know why. I don't know whether because I had this interest in comedy, whatever. And I remember always thinking, I think the perfect time to get married would be at 51, because by then you'd want to sort of inject some new energy and excitement into life. All your friends would be 20, 30 years into marriage and you'd be like, yay, I'm starting again. You'd know who you were. It just felt right for me.
Did you know you didn't want children?
No, it just sort of never came. I think I was focused in my 20s and early 30s thinking, I'm just going to try this comedy thing. I mean, obviously it's not going to happen. Knew I wasn't interested in the white dress and getting married, unless it was to a farmer, obviously.
Yeah.
If I'd randomly met the farmer. So I just was focused on, well, let's just live in London, see what happens with the comedy thing. And then it took off. So then I was just like, well, I'm not going to let a boy ruin this. I seem to be doing something here. And that's just what took over instead.
The reason I'm about to ask you this question is not because I'm a sort of gender reductionist. And it's because of my personal journey, yet again, all about herself, in that I don't have children and I tried and failed.
Oh, sorry, that's what you asked, the children, yeah.
But I'm very at peace with the fact that I don't have children.
Yeah.
And I think it's really healthy for people to hear stories of fully realised women who aren't mothers in the conventional sense.
Yes. Well, another thing the world shouts at us, isn't it?
Yes.
Get married by, I'm 35, it's old apparently. It's still now, like you've got to have your life together at age 30. What's all this nonsense? The desire for me never happened. I would have this odd flicker of thinking, I think I'd make a good mum. And there's occasional flicker of sadness that I can't impart what I've learnt, or I can't share something with someone, or just experience what that's like. That was just flickers of intrigue rather than an overwhelming maternal desire for children, which you must have had. And I didn't, because I didn't even consider going down the route. And I always thought I'm going to be quite happy without kids. So it just wasn't, it was just very, maybe it was just never meant to be. Like I remember on the set of Call the Midwife talking to a couple of makeup artists, and I noticed that quite a lot of them hadn't had children. And I asked them about that. And they said, I feel so fulfilled in who I am. I have roles as being a godmother or a stepmother, or I'm invested in my work and my friendships in a way. And I thought, yeah, I'm so lucky that I've never felt that pressure or that lack as somebody who, we've all got a purpose and we're all uniquely wired. And maybe it just, I wasn't meant to have children. That's not where my energy was meant to go. I don't know.
Also, imagine Call the Midwife. It's enough to put you off going through birth, because those birth scenes.
Quite full on.
Yes.
Particularly when you're handling a 10-day-old baby slathered in baby oil and not ketchup or whatever the equivalent was for blood. And you had to deliver it. And then you're trying to do the acting whilst also thinking, the mother of this tiny newborn is watching on the screen. I could easily drop this thing. I mean, there's a lot going on.
Wow.
And you've got to pretend you know what you're doing.
How do you even get a 10-day-old baby? Are they signed up to actors' agencies?
Yes, now you think, why have I not questioned that before? I think there was too much going on at that moment.
Yes, fair enough. You had the
wasn't,
oil and the...
They must have gone around hospitals, mustn't they?
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
Does anyone want their newborn to be in a show?
Yeah. I mean, it's a good show to be in.
The first series, they didn't know that.
Yeah, true. Can I just say, though, on a serious note, that idea of imparting wisdom and advice, I actually think with your book, it's an act of mothering, if that's not too much of an overstep. I felt very mothered reading it.
Well, no, I do say, and I shouldn't have, I policed myself because I resisted saying you mother in other ways, but you do. It does feel like my main creative gifts, in this book being one and Miranda being, those two being the main, do feel like, my act of mothering.
Yes. Let's get on to your second failure, which is failed athlete.
Yes.
So you were pretty good at sport and sprinting and all sorts at school.
Yeah, so it's really weird because I got into the public eye when I'd put on a huge amount of weight and was clowning. And so if ever I said I was a failed athlete, people would just laugh, understandably, because they didn't know when I was mid-late teens, I was an athlete. I was a lacrosse player at school and had county lacrosse. I think maybe at one point England. My memory is so shot. Lyme disease, see, affects memory. But definitely was county level, and then it was a very, very fast sprinter. And it was just sport. Being an athlete was my absolute passion. I think it's back to freedom of movement. I was obviously tall, lean. I was also very good at tennis, and I wanted to be a professional athlete. That's all I could think of doing. And I had this opportunity, because it was a good public school. I think a lot of people, well, hopefully it's not just public schools, but a lot of people migrate to those schools to scouts to look for athletes. And somebody came up to me, having seen me sprint the 100 metres, and said, "Oh, I'm from we're a club in Southampton, and you've absolutely got potential. Would you like to come and train for free this summer?" And I was wide-eyed, like, God, this is my absolute dream. My parents don't live far from Southampton. My God. And then he said to me, bearing in mind this is 1985, "You will have to strap down your breasts." To which I was so scared and so horrified, I just ran away. I never told anyone about it, and that to me feels like I feel like I failed myself there, because there could have been a way around that. If I told an adult about that, they would have said, "You should come and do the training, talk us through the breast thing, because we won't be doing that." So I feel really sad that I missed that opportunity. And then life circumstances, after school and whatever, illness, putting on weight, I just lost that side of me. And I feel, it pains me actually. And it's interesting to get in touch with now, because in the last 3 years, I'm probably the biggest I've ever been weight-wise, which I hate to say I don't have a problem with. Well, I'm dealing with it not being a problem in terms of bigger is lesser, pun.
Yeah.
But just because it's not me, I feel uncomfortable and it's difficult to manage and deal with. It's just not my athletic. So I'm really in touch again with the sadness of putting on weight in my 20s and losing that athleticism and not keeping up sport and not keeping that up, because it feels like such an inherent part of who I am. I love that movement, that energy, the connection with team sports. I love mastering things. Could have been good at tennis. So yeah, I feel really sad that I missed that.
Yes, because it's losing your identity.
Yeah.
And the way you present in the world is really important if you feel that it doesn't accurately reflect who you are.
Well, it was then hard to then sort of getting into telly big. I mean, I think Miranda would have worked if I'd still been thin in my natural way. I still would have been the bumbling idiot. But you then sort of presenting yourself you do feel like you're presenting not quite who you are. And people would laugh if I said I was an athlete, which always really hurt me.
Of course, that's so hurtful.
But I tell you what I'm learning from it now, which I would say to my 20-something younger self who put on weight for illness and other reasons, is actually, because it's what I'm having to learn now with this weight gain, it's not the external and how you present is important, but it's not the most important thing. The key is to know and find out who you are without any of the external identifying you, which is what happened to me in my illness. There was nothing. I was bed and housebound on and off for years. So I couldn't work, I couldn't socialise, I couldn't, from whatever, tell stories, I couldn't move, I couldn't go on adventures, I couldn't go on holidays. I lost my home at one point. There was nothing by worldly measurement to go, this is who I am. And it's incredibly humbling and terrifying. But if you find out who you are beyond that, there is a freedom and meaning and joy to life that I don't think I ever would have found without it. So actually, being who I am, whilst being big and not an athlete, is a very humbling privilege, actually, because I can really focus on the most important things about me. It's actually making me feel a bit teary.
It's so powerful what you're saying and how you're saying it. Thank you.
Well, I just think, and when I first put on this weight recently, midlife hormones and happy fat due to a blame husband, because when you first meet someone, you end up eating a lot and going out and getting takeaways and all that. But yeah, hormones midlife ultimately, and becoming deconditioned due to chronic illness. The initial shame I felt about it, the initial embarrassment, I thought, oh gosh, I'm going back to work after 10 years and I'm going to present really differently and I'm going to be fat, which I know is fine, but it's not me, so it didn't feel fine. But now it is becoming fine. And I just think anyone who feels lesser for any reason, whether it's weight gain, whether it's because they don't feel they have the right job, the right relationship by a certain age, whether they're an introvert and they don't want to, whatever reason, I just so passionately believe that we are inherently valuable and worthwhile and loved, and that's our purpose, to love and to be loved, and nothing else matters. Some people might say that my rumbling, huge, roly-poly tummy is the best part of me, but it's not. Our bodies are not the best part of us. Our jobs aren't the best part of us.
I actually want to pick you up there on the language you use to talk about yourself, because there's a part in the book where you say how important words and labels are. So you label Lyme disease differently. You label your fatigue differently.
Yeah.
Is that still a work in progress? Because just then you sounded pretty critical about yourself.
What, the way I said fat?
The way you said your huge rumbling tummy.
Yeah, that's just me going to an obvious joke. Because I thought that literally just was comedy, honestly.
As defense mechanism, Miranda?
No, not as defense mechanism.
Fine.
Because I'm genuinely learning that my body's not what's important. And then I thought the joke is that, well, somebody might think this is the most important part of me. It was hilarious,
Thank you
Elizabeth.
for explaining the joke to me. I'm so sorry. I was so in my emotions after the exquisite thing you just said.
Well, it just shows that the comedian does always ruin it if they go there.
I'm sorry.
No, it's all in the delivery.
But do you tell us about how important it is the way we talk to ourselves and the fact that we're not our brain-generated anxious thoughts? Yeah,
well, you know all about this, the inner critic. And I think we... correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we all have one, but I think we all have one to varying degrees. Mine was pretty nasty and she's now under control.
Yeah, mine's worse than yours. See, that's me doing an inner critic.
Yeah, classic. But yeah, those thoughts of, well, any I should or could be better thoughts, or hitting the pillow, I didn't do that right, you didn't do that better, you're not as good as that person, you should be better by now, all those sort of inner critical thoughts. They're so much more damaging than I think we ever realise. That to that, I would never want to scare someone to think, oh my gosh, I have that inner critic, am I damaging myself? No, because you can rewire away from it. But yeah, just to start to begin to listen how you talk about yourself, or think about yourself, more importantly, having that moment of stillness to write down your kind of top line thoughts. But yeah, taking out, I think I used to say the word gangly or goofy to kind of apologise for myself all the time. And actually those words really are powerful. And your brain hears everything you say and think. So you become what you think in a way, don't you? So yeah, but the one trick I was told by an expert who'd dealt with ME and chronic fatigue was start taking the language of illness and symptoms out of your lexicon, because every time you mention Lyme disease or fatigue, it's spooking your brain. Because fatigue was so horrifying unless you've had it, it's just impossible to explain. But you literally, I remember at one point looking at a glass of water and just thinking, I don't know how to pick that up. I need water. That's what fatigue is. And so it's a really frightening condition. So if you can start saying other words, so I now call fatigue gazelle. And if ever I do have any setbacks still in my health, I'll say to husband, oh, gazelle's really bad today. So I'll talk about the opposite sort of sentiment to it. So I think there's a huge power in words.
Your final failure is as a singer and dancer.
Yeah.
What's your singing and dancing history?
Well, so I suppose it's quite unusual for an actor to come on here and not give you a failed audition or a failed something like that, because I don't have a fear of failure when it comes to auditions. The only audition that I've ever failed, and I'm still bitter, twisted, and gnarly and furious and sad about it, is middle school choir, aged, must have been 13, maybe 14. I thought I'd be an absolute shoo-in. Didn't get him. Miss Simmons, I think she was called, who was very diminutive. I would have towered over her. So I don't know why she didn't just, through fear of my shock, just go, yes, you're in. I still remember her. I think, why didn't you? Why? But it was the shock, because I loved singing, wanted to be a singer, or wanted to be able to sing, rather. So thought, I'd like to be able to be an actor and do musicals. So I was so shocked that I didn't get into middle school choir. So gutted. Then I thought, I know, I'll audition for the sixth form choir, which is called choral, and was very good. Didn't get into that. Still sad about that. So that was my proper fail, was that I didn't have an instrument, as singers call their voice, that I thought I had. Then, get this, Discovery, Showbiz exclusive. I then get to do a musical. I get to play Miss Hannigan and Annie. But I started doing singing lessons and letting go of the angst of not getting to middle school choir. And I was okay. I was definitely okay. And it's a character part, so I could get away with it. But I couldn't fully open my voice. I felt this constriction in my throat. And the singing teacher was brilliant. And he said to me, he told me to stick my tongue out. And I did. And he said, you are completely tongue-tied, which I knew because me and my friends laugh about my tiny tongue. That's the showbiz exclusive.
That is. That's the headline there.
Yeah, I don't know whether to stick out. Now, let me finish the story.
I've got a really long tongue.
Okay, hilarious. Photo opportunity on its way. Yeah. So what it ends up, he said he's come across a lot of people with this thing. And you're so tight in your voice box, your larynx, it is literally like you have swallowed your tongue. To which I burst out crying. And he said, you're not the first person who's done that either. Because it is complete repression. And it is and he said, you're also not the first public school person to have experienced this. And so I think what happened with is that I am musical and I can sing, I can hold a tune, and I have musicality in me. But from a very young age, I had felt like I needed to be quiet. I'd needed to keep those emotions in and repress. And so I had to get a massage during the musical every week to try and keep this voice box open. But I don't know if you can, whether I'm just aware of it, but I can hear it's just sort of very creaky and it's just very stuck.
That is fascinating.
It's completely fascinating to me.
That loss of voice, that sort of unconscious self-betrayal that is the theme throughout everything we've been talking about and everything you write about in the book.
And it's not our fault. I think it's really important to say that actually, I uncover the truth of, what happens in our childhood and why we sometimes need to suppress ourselves to fit in and belong. And that's vital and necessary and very clever ploy. But that's sort of that's for Gabor Mate to tell us all about. Et al.
Former guest.
You love him. But so obviously that was one of the ways I did it. And here I was sort of in my 40s trying to open this voice and being told no, that there was a physiological effect potentially. I mean, we don't know if that was absolute, but it rang true to me. The fact, I think whenever you burst out in tears, it's truth.
Yes. And I think one of the things that comes across is that need for you to take up more space, to believe that you're worth that.
Yeah.
We've come onto the boy, Akka, your husband. And
we danced together, can I just say?
Yes, and he's a drummer, you said.
He's a drummer, so I'm very envious of his musicianship.
But there was something about, and I'm not going to give away how you met because it's the most amazing story and the most incredible payoff for the book. But there was something about the first date that you had with him that was so important in terms of acceptance. Will you tell us that story?
Yeah, well, it's very, it's very silly, but because I met him sort of halfway through the story of the book. So it was at the point where I was like, okay, this unexpectedly to me, this story is, and this discovery of this time is learning to be honestly who I am, and who I inherently am, and how to be a kind, loving version of me. Because I think that's basically our purpose, is to love and to be kind. I mean, we all do that in our unique different ways. So I was like, okay, I'm not going to say sorry unless I've made, really need to. I'm going to be me. I'm not going to rein myself in. Okay. So I had the opportunity to go on this date, and I thought, the reason I'm nervous is because I've made a little vow to myself to be honestly myself. And so we were chatting, all very easy, very fun from the off. And then we get a pizza delivery. And the pizza comes, and I haven't shied away from saying how excited I am about my pizza, because I think pizza is very exciting. And he found that, I'm pleased to say, charming. And he was like, yeah, I'm excited about pizza too. But my pizza arrived, and it had done that thing of shunting towards that one end. The mozzarella was leaking everywhere. That end of the carb, it sort of flipped a bit, so it looked a bit like a calzone, but I don't like calzones. Don't know why. They're just pizzas halved, aren't they?
They're too much dough.
It just don't know what's going on there. So in the spirit of just being authentically me, I go off on one. I get full on teenage grumpy. I'm like, I am so disappointed by this. Look, yours is really nice. Look at mine. What is that? Half a calzone? Don't know. It's all shunted, the mozzarella. I'm so disappointed. I went on and on and on. He was a bit sort of wide-eyed. He's very shy, sweet, keep the peace, sort of wide-eyed. And the inner critic came in and went, apologise, do your thing, say, sorry, I'm an absolute idiot. I don't know what I was doing. I was only joking. I thought, no, I'm not going to. I was like, so, awful, isn't it? Thinking also slightly back of my mind, first world problem, get into perspective, privilege, etc. But no, in that moment, I was pissed off about and there was a slight moment. He went, no, it is sad. Look at that mozzarella. It's not doing what it should do. And I went, exactly. And I was like, we formed this most delicious connection, and actually sat eating the pizza in a bit of silence, a la the dog loving unconditional presence. But because it kick-started the freedom for him and for me to just go, yeah, let's start meeting and connecting, and if this is going further in this way, let's not do formal, let's not do small talk. It's not who we are. And then when he did text and say, when should we see each other again? I was like, okay, well, he does like me, because I was who I was, and probably farted within 10 minutes as well. But it's such a silly example, but it's also really important, because I wouldn't have done that before.
Yes, because
you have to be how you've got to be on a first date. You've got to be sophisticated and together and pretty.
And play games. Ultimately, that's what that is. It's not showing up as yourself, which is a really courageous thing to do in a society that conditions us to be anything but. And I'm so happy for you that you have found that, because you so deserve it.
Thank you.
Because you have made so many other people feel fully accepted to show up exactly as they are, many of whom you'll never meet. And I think that's been an incredible act of generosity on your part. And I'm really glad to hear that you found it for yourself, because you deserve it.
It is lovely. And I'd sort of written a sort of version of it with Gary and Miranda in Sitcom. And then I suddenly realised, oh, wow, I was writing what I knew was possible, but for some reason didn't think it was possible for me, didn't think it would ever happen. And then he came along. What
are you writing next? What are you going to manifest into your life through writing next?
Give me a
Come on. You've had 10 years.
Yeah.
I'm joking.
I don't know, actually. I don't know. I actually finished this book quite recently. So it was one of those when there hasn't been a massive gap before publication. So I haven't had that moment, when you stop another book and go, oh, new ideas are coming. I haven't had that moment yet, and I can't wait.
A final question. How is it being back in the public eye?
Well, I don't know when this goes out, but this is the first piece of work, although this doesn't feel like remotely like work, chatting to you in this pink womb.
Yes.
But this is the first thing I've done in years and years, talking to you. I'm delighted it's you. So I don't know quite. I'll have to come back and tell you in a month or so what it's like. So I don't know. I feel excited in the main. Because I know how to manage myself. I know who I am. I've said no to things that in the past I wouldn't say no to. So I'm like, I can't believe I used to say yes to that. Of course that's a no, because that's just not me, or I find it too tiring, or because I've still got some fatigue to manage, which is ghastly, but also humbling and gives you a real focus to keep being honest with yourself. What's the right thing for you in this time? Without being selfish, but just focusing on recovery and what's important. And I think the more honest you are with yourself, and the more yeses you say that are right for you and the no's that you say that are right for you, the more loving you're actually being, instead of doing anything remotely close to people pleasing.
Exactly, because you're actively committed to that rather than being silently resentful.
Yeah.
So that is an act of love for yourself, but also for others.
Yeah. So I'm excited about being in the public eye and being back at my work that I love with this knowledge, and with being more freely who I am than I ever thought I needed to be.
Well, we're so excited to have you back.
We'll see what happens. I might go back and live on a farm and go, no, it's not for me.
As a wife, though. Just not as a farmer, remember.
Just as husband can do all the admin side of it. I just play with the chickens.
You can be a singing, dancing, athletic farmer's wife.
Yes, exactly. I'm attracted with a straw hat.
Thank you so much for coming on How to Fail. And you were back to stay, because you're staying on for Fading with Friends, where we answer listener queries. But you've been the most phenomenal guest. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Please do follow How to Fail to get new episodes as they land on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, or wherever you get your podcasts. Please tell all your friends. This is an Elizabeth Day and Sony Music Entertainment original podcast. Thank you so much for listening.